Hello and welcome to the Teach Music 21C podcast series. I'm Merlin Thompson, the creator and founder of Teach Music 21C, a music teachers professional development program where the focus is on nurturing and empowering our students as lifelong music makers. And I'm joined today by Francis Lumibao, a graduate of the Teach Music 21C Certification program. Welcome, Francis.
Hello, Merlin. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. And we're just going to jump right in as always, Francis. I'm curious, can you tell us something about how the certification program has impacted your teaching, or what's been the takeaway for you?
Definitely, yeah. So since taking the program, I felt like my teaching has been more certain. Uh, before the program, I was sort of playing around, trying out different things, copying from different pedagogies, trying to see what works, what doesn't work. But the Teach Music 21C gave me this kind of uh, like a toolbox to choose from. I would say it's more. It has given me more structure in my teaching, and with that, I gained more confidence with the students. Even though like I've been teaching for years, I would still say there's still some sort of nervousness whenever a student steps into that room.
Sure.
But uh, yeah, this program helped me kind of like manage all those. And yeah, I would well, I'm not the judge of this, but hopefully I'm teaching better. Hopefully the students are learning better. But yeah, I'd say I'm confident now.
Nice. So you mentioned a toolbox, and for me, it's a great image for teachers because we go into teaching with our toolbox. What would you say would be one of the best tools that you got in that toolbox that you got from Teach Music 21C?
Mm, Probably the best one is uh, the from the five anchors. Mostly, it's totally my mindset in teaching. What affected me most, because I would say that's kind of like the root of it. Um, so with the five anchors, we there's the music in our lives, skills and knowledge, 20 years from now. Um, so I always kind of ask nowadays what music is in the students' lives. Back then it was just, okay, you're here for a guitar lesson. All right, so this is what I've learned. I'm gonna teach it all to you. Gonna
Sure.
pour all those years of information into a 30-minute lesson. So it had, I would say, when I'm reflecting back on it, I've probably put in too much information in a student's
Yeah.
work. So, and I would say I think that's very inefficient. Probably would lead them to be overwhelmed. But then when I come to think of it, like what would be music uh, is for them from their perspective. Like, so I kind of like ask them what it is with music that you like, what made you take these lessons, and how am I being, how am I able to help you? So, what is music in their lives? And from that, I now build what kind of curriculum they
Yeah.
would kind of like want to do it. So sometimes they have no idea, so it's more of less like a teacher-led
Sure.
curriculum. Sometimes they're full of ideas, so it's a
Mhm.
student-led curriculum.
Mhm.
My favorite is, of course, shared curriculum because there's an exchange. So not only them that's learning, but it's also me who's learning from them. So I would say, yeah, the five anchors is kind of like what has affected me most because that's where it usually starts. And yeah, it's uh, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, because the starting from that place of the music in students' lives is such an incredible place, and it's something that's really been not necessarily a part of what our music teaching history has been all about. I'm curious, though, Have there been any like really interesting surprises when students say, "Yeah, I want to go in this direction, I want to go in that direction," or "This is a piece that's meaningful for me"? Any surprises there, or things that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, I find when students say something like that, like they have something, an idea where they would really want to learn. It challenges me more than preparing something I'm not sure of. So, for example, there's this one student who, just stepped in, and then he wanted to learn these songs from the 90s. It's more like a metal or a rock, a mix of
Sure.
heavy rock.
Yeah.
And then he was already like just 1 second from the class, he's already like complaining, or very, I would say, determined that the song was in a using a 7-string guitar. So how can we do this using a 6-string guitar? So,
Okay.
but I know, kind of, I knew he was gonna think that, sort of a guess, but then yeah, it was a good guess because it's what he did. So I recorded a video, we playing the song in a 6-string guitar. So yeah, so now he kind of like more believed it somehow, that it can be done. So I would say it I like the challenge of it, because it's more like a, for me it's like a puzzle that I want to solve, not just for me but for the student themselves. And but of course I always see to it that they learn something, not just from my games.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's really two things going on all the time. There's what students are bringing and the things that they're interested in. And then there's that interweaving that we've got to do to find ways to kind of sharpen their own awareness, or sharpen the skill set that they're exploring on their own too. So it's really exciting time to be doing
Yeah.
this kind of work with students. And I'm curious, a couple other things that you've mentioned. I'd like to go back to that toolbox to see if we can look at it again, and especially with the 5 anchors, because we've got the idea of what is the music in students' lives. Have you had any explorations with that whole question of what musical activities will students participate in 20 years from now or 10 years from now? Have you had any interesting thoughts from students on that?
um I would say, well, not exactly 20 years from now, but more like
Sure.
a few months ahead. Like
Yeah.
there's a few students or like, as of this early time of the year, they're already looking forward to what they would do during December of this year. Um, Other than that, mostly when I ask that to some students, uh, mostly they want music just as a hobby for now.
Sure.
And then when they say that, I really kind of like appreciate that, because at least it gives us more direction to what would happen during the lesson time. So yeah, something not as yeah, not too far of 20 years from now is usually what I get, but I would still I think it will lead them to think about it. I suppose.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying about the hobby as well. Hobbies can be really great. They give you that aspect of wellness. They bring that aspect of wellness to your life. You're doing something that's meaningful for you. You're spending time doing things that you enjoy doing. So for me, that whole meaningful part of the hobby is really amazing. I also think that there's this word amateur out there. So the amateur music maker, and the amateur music maker is, I love that word amateur. It means someone who loves doing something. So, it's pretty obvious that we're working with students who don't have a professional career in mind, but they do have this idea that they'd like to explore music because it's something that's meaningful to them.
Yeah. And then, well, I do find some students who are very curious, kind of like, and then, of course, when they ask things like, what is it like in the music industry? What is it like doing things like this? Is it good? Is it great? Is it busy? Is it? So I still find it challenging to answer those questions because I myself is still currently on the quest to find out those
Yeah,
things.
sure.
But I do appreciate it when they ask those questions because it also, yeah, it leads back to me reflecting, yeah, what is it about the music nowadays? What would I do 20 years from now?
Mm.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the certification program, that whole reflective process is so important too, even for us to be thinking. So, why are we doing this? How are we doing this? Where are we going with this? And that's something I hear you just pointing to right now. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's interesting. So, have you got any thoughts about where your teaching might end up in the next while? We won't go 20 years ahead. Let's just go in the next while.
Well, I don't plan on ending it. Kind of when people ask like what age would you retire? uh, what I kind of like keep telling them is why would I retire if I can still do it at 90? Why not?
Yeah.
This is something like I don't wanna, yeah, stop doing. Uh, for me, learning never ends because I myself still is currently learning all sorts of things, and yeah. So 20 years from now, I've thought of that, but yeah, I would see myself still teaching.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I
Mhm.
appreciate what you got to say here today. This is so interesting because, this whole idea of lifelong learning, the certification program is just one little kind of place that you can stop off and get some, well, I won't call it a little place. I'll call it a big place that you can stop off and get some major learning done, which triggers then for me a whole bunch of learning that's yet to come in the future as well.
Mhm.
So
uh, oh, sorry. What was the question again?
No, I think we're just about out of time here, actually,
Oh,
Francis. So
yeah.
I'll wrap this up by saying thanks for spending some time with me today. I appreciate that you've brought this reminder of how important the anchors are that we use in the certification program. And just for people who've not heard of anchors before, it's really talking about the teacher's mindset and how the whole idea of what's meaningful for students, the music in their lives, there's a combination with what teachers want to pass on. So all of those things get interwoven together to make for a really great exploration. It's been great to talk with you today. Thanks for spending the time with us. I hope
Well,
we can invite you back to do another session again in the future.
sure. Your pleasure's all mine, Merlin.
So to everybody out there who's joined in today, I'm Merlin Thompson. I've been here today with Francis Lumibao. We're both from Teach Music 21C, and this is the Teach Music 21C podcast series. And we'll hope to see you all again sometime in the future. Thanks for joining in.